Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Cultivating Purpose webinar. My name is Brianna Smith, and I am the Program Manager for the Midlife Academy and the Osher Lifelong Learning Institute in the College of Continuing and Professional Studies at the University of Minnesota. We're so glad you can all join us this evening on what is a beautiful night here in the Twin Cities. Tonight, we're going to be hearing from our Cultivating Purpose facilitator, Megan Voorhees, who's going to tell you all about this wonderful course. We're also going to be joined by former participants of the class who are here to talk about their experiences and what drew them to the Midlife Academy. I am going to start out by briefly introducing you all to the Midlife Academy and our other lifelong learning work at the University of Minnesota, in case this is all new to some of you joining us this evening. Before I do, just a quick tip. If you have any technical issues with our webinar, you can throw those into the chat, and CCAP's help will try to support you in having the best webinar experience you can. Questions can go in the Q&A box. I'll do my best to answer what I can over the course of the webinar, but we'll also have time at the end for questions and discussion. So we'll collect those there as well. I can see someone already popping into the chat. We'd love to know where you're zooming in from, why you're here. So feel free to use the chat to build out that community as we gather tonight to learn more about the Midlife Academy and what we're up to, which is a lot of very exciting things. Okay, so the Midlife Academy at the University of Minnesota has just finished its first academic year of offering courses. After our webinar, or as we chat with you tonight, you can head over to our website, midlife.umn.edu, where you'll find all you need to know about upcoming courses, our team, our podcast, basically a lot of the stuff we're going to tell you about tonight. What I want to give you a glimpse at here is what inspired us to put this academy together and why we thought there was a real need for the work we're doing. A lot of great research coming out of the University of Minnesota, also out of Stanford, is talking about longevity and preparing us all for the fact that we are all going to live longer lives. The idea of the 100-year life that requires us to rethink our understanding of our life paths and our pivots, changes, transitions along the way, and looking for ways to better support folks in these different transitions. Also allowing people to think about ways that they can work more years, but in different capacities, in different ways, with greater flexibility, and ways in which we might pivot into new work lives that have purpose and direction in ways that our initial careers may not. And offering also opportunities for us to learn throughout life as we make these transitions. For the University of Minnesota, it was really important to think about all the different demographics of learners that we're serving. Certainly serving the undergraduate learner, even folks in high school taking PSEO classes who are learning to launch their career, who are perhaps training in a particular field for a specific career. We're serving folks within their careers in our professional development programs who are looking to reskill or upskill or pivot within their career. But we're also really interested in thinking about something we're calling encore learning, which is what I started to talk about in my previous slide about these various life paths that might take us to a fork in the road or a moment in our life when we know we need some kind of change. And the University of Minnesota wanting to support everyone in opportunities to think of how we can reinvent ourselves, how we can rethink our careers and our work lives in perhaps a more kind of portfolio approach, and how we might make a greater civic impact and work towards the issues and ideas that really matter to us most. And here's where we really see the Midlife Academy really coming in to fill what was really a gap in our offering of learning programs. So along comes the Midlife Academy at the University of Minnesota, pitching itself as an academy designed for those at midlife and beyond, and defining midlife quite capaciously as they navigate career and life pivots. The Midlife Academy provides the structure and support needed as people explore what's next. And this evening, you're going to hear a lot about that structure and support and what we have in mind and how important we think those aspects of what we're up to are. Some of the themes that come out in our courses are really starting to help folks understand what transitions are like. A lot of incredible research done on transitions to help folks understand what they might already be experiencing, but feeling uncomfortable about, understanding the course of transitions, but also ways that one can clarify values and motivations as they move through one of these transitions. Identifying ways, once one has identified values, ways to have an impact on society, ways that we can explore our personal narratives, think about our lives, and how they inform our understanding of who we are today and where we want to go in our next chapter. Another theme that comes up a lot is really using the Midlife Academy course as an opportunity for experimentation as folks begin to explore what that next chapter might look like. The idea of crafting experiments that allow us to explore without perhaps taking that big step to ease the path towards that change or that next step. And part of this is also about building accountability and support by having a group of folks coming together in a course who are all going through it together to share and support and helping folks stay accountable to the work that everyone has gathered to commit themselves to. And thus, what we also see coming out of these courses and really emphasize is the significance of social connections, making meaningful connections, and the possibility of really building new networks through the folks that people meet in our courses. And this is why we really stress the cohort approach of our Midlife Academy courses. You're going to hear all about this from our alumni here tonight. But once again, the idea, rather than going it alone, coming at this work, exploring, experimenting in a cohort of other learners. And I sat in on an entire Cultivating Purpose class, and the collective wisdom and the variety of perspectives and the support of this group was phenomenal, transformational, and I'll let the others tell you more about that. But what was really cool was to see the networks growing between people in the group as they met new people, discovered shared interests, conspired about future projects that they might endeavor together, and to see all these kind of sparks flying between the groups. So our current course offerings include Cultivating Purpose, which you'll be hearing about tonight from Megan, as well as a course that just wrapped up called Next Chapter Reset, Creating Momentum. It's really interested in thinking about career pivots, but also interested in this values work that we're talking about and that Megan will talk to you about more as well. Over the course of our webinar tonight, I will be adding information into the chat about links to find where you can register for our upcoming courses. So we'll make sure you leave here tonight with a clear idea of how to go about doing that. In addition to our courses, we're also really interested in providing an educational resource to folks in other forms as well, serving this mission of the University of Minnesota to hit these encore learners. So we have free webinars like the one you're attending tonight, others that have covered other important topics that we often speak about in the Midlife Academy. We also have the Midlife Academy podcast hosted by myself with many fabulous guests, including an episode featuring Megan Voorhees talking about purpose, a recent episode about caregiving, burnout, portfolio lives, a variety of topics that come up in the podcast. Once again, that kind of give a little preview of the course content coming up in our Midlife Academy courses. And what's really exciting for us, having just put this thing together over the past year, is to see the incredible resonance around what we're doing, and that this is a nationwide interest in the Midlife Academy and emphasis on these concepts that we're bringing people together to learn about. A great write-up in the Minnesota Star Tribune, a Men's Health article. You'll see a reference to us a little bit in the past from David Brooks, referring to a previous program, but the similar kind of concept from the Atlantic. And we are featured in the forthcoming or perhaps just released Longevity Nation by Michael Clinton. So the interest we see here coming from the press is echoed in the interest and enthusiasm of our participants. And we are really excited to continue to develop our courses and serve folks that are really craving, I think, what the Midlife Academy is offering in the name of this kind of cohort style learning about purpose, transitions, and all the things in between. I'll make a brief pitch as well when we're talking about University of Minnesota and lifelong learning programs. In addition to the Midlife Academy, we also have the Osher Lifelong Learning Institute, or OLLI, That is a learning community designed specifically for those 50 plus. We are part of a nationwide network of Ollies. And what we are up to is non-credit enrichment courses. No tests, no assignments, learning for the sake and fun of learning, and learning with an older adult cohort of curious, interested people. So learning together while also building social connections, and social connections with folks maybe you would never have met in other aspects of your life. In addition to these courses, which we're offering throughout the year, courses that are online, in classrooms, tours, we also have special interest groups, which are essentially social clubs related to a variety of interests, whether it's a book club or a group that talks about travel opportunities or bikers or birders or film enthusiasts. These are organized by our members, once again, bringing together folks that are excited to do something together. And we are also very much a volunteer-driven organization. Our course leaders are all volunteers, meaning teaching for free because they also love the act of teaching and learning with others. And we are really open to really inviting people to try out teaching who have never taught before. Examples of our courses include a course taught by a Cultivating Purpose alum, Matt Parker, who thought he would try out teaching and taught a course this spring called Solving Cold Cases with DNA Technology and Traditional Genealogy. As the title suggests, I'm sure you're all like, I'd like to take that class. This was a resounding success. There were dozens on a wait list and people begging him to come back and teach again. So thanks go out to Matt for offering this wonderful class. But you'll see from the list that classes also really run a wide variety from music to birding, like I said, tours in the community, like the visit to Home and Field, Secrets of the Library, where they tour different libraries in the Twin Cities, a class called Thinking Like a Hacker, and Technology of World War II. Lots of World War II classes. We know our demographic. We want World War II, right? So no shortage of history. Okay, with that, I'm going to turn it on over to Megan, who's going to bring us into a closer look at this Cultivating Purpose class and really the incredible work that's done in this course. Let me tell you a little bit about Megan before I turn it over to her. Megan is our designer, as well as the current facilitator of the Cultivating Purpose course. For the Midlife Academy, she has designed and led high-impact educational programs for over 30 years, including over 25 cohort programs that supported participants in learning the skills to be effective leaders and/or to successfully navigate life and career transitions. Megan Voorhees, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Bree. Hello, welcome all. I hate these webinars because I like to see everybody, but I'm grateful that everyone is here to learn a little bit more about this class. I'm just going to do a short overview because I think the honest descriptions of what happens and what doesn't happen in the class will come from the 4 or 5 alums that have been able to join us today. So I'm going to share my screen. So what's this Cultivating Purpose class about? So we started it this year. I've taught it twice. Last fall, I taught it in person here in Minnesota. And then this winter taught it online. And we had folks from multiple states in that class. So why Cultivating Purpose? Why is this important? We know research says that having a purpose in life predicts longevity, functioning, improves our cognition, helps us to just weather those sort of daily stressors, manage depression and anxiety, and it can just help increase positive emotions and higher self-esteem. And we know that it's really normal throughout life to have different moments where you don't have a sense of purpose. So don't feel disheartened and worried about your longevity if that's a place you're in right now. And also that purpose in life can really decline with age. And as Bree mentioned, the statistic that comes to mind for me all the time is for folks who were in their 50s in the United States and went to college, and that's my demographic, so that's why I remember this statistic. We have a 50% chance of living till we're 100. Right? So I don't want to spend the next 50 years with less purpose in life. And so just being able to take a step back, take some time for yourself and with a larger community to think about how it is that you want to be living your life can be quite powerful. So, just a short overview of the course. We take time to just really hone in and remember or learn what's most important to you. What are your core values? What do you care about? What are those moments in your life that really spoke to you that might have lessons for how you want to live your life in the future? Taking some time to step back and rethink the stories that you've been telling about your life. Maybe there's some different perspectives or shifts or ways of learning from those experiences that can really improve your life going forward. Taking some time to clarify how you want to have an impact in the world. How do you want to matter? What matters to you, and who do you want to be in the larger world? And then, of course, to strengthen social connection. And one takeaway I've had from teaching the class the last couple times is we know that a lot of us are just more isolated socially than we used to be, and how powerful it is to come together and be with peers, learning from one another. It's very important to me to create a class where folks are not only learning from me, and of course, I bring research and information and guest speakers, et cetera, to the class, but also a chance for everyone to learn from their peers because we all have something to share that can really help each other. I will share on the Strengthening Social Connections. The fall class, which I said was in person, so everyone who's here in Minnesota, is now planning their fourth reunion. So half to two-thirds of the class have shown up for each of those. And the winter course, which was online with folks from multiple states, did have a reunion within a week and a half of the class ending. So that suggests to me that's a big gift to folks to come together and get to be real with each other about what's working and what's not working in your life. And then throughout the class, I and the alums will probably talk about this, just encourage folks from the very beginning to do little experiments, right? Trying different things to see what might work without a huge commitment, like what's happening that you want, what you might want to explore doing differently in life. Elements. So, of course, there's lots of time for your own individual reflection. Everyone gets a printed reflection workbook. So, I think it's really a gift that I want to give everyone to get you off your computer. So, even if it's an online course, you'll get a little package in the mail and a chance for individual reflection outside of the class as well as in the class. I already talked a lot about community throughout the course. There's lots of small groups, lots of opportunities for peer learning and support and accountability. I just got a text from one of the students who's not here today, said, please tell them that I talk to my accountability buddy like every 3 days. Not required for the class, but that might be something that happens for you. I really try to create lots of different ways for folks to learn. So we have a number of guest speakers come, use videos, podcasts, readings, research, poetry, music, and art. We all learn in different ways, and sometimes a different way of learning can help shake things up. And then each course I offer an optional individual coaching session if that would be helpful to folks. Most folks take advantage of that. So you're like, oh, this class sounds good. I think Bree's going to put links in the chat. We do have a class coming up. Registration is open now for our summer online course. This is going to be every other week because I know what summer is like, right? If it's every week, folks might not follow through on some of the homework and reflection exercises I give. So that will be on Tuesday nights from 5:30 to 8 p.m. Central. I should have put the Central time on there. Take that into account if you're in a different time zone. And then in the fall, I'm going to try a different form of the class. We're going to do an in-person retreat in St. Paul, Minnesota on Friday, September 11th, and then go online 3 times, touching base, learning more throughout the fall, and then come back together for an in-person retreat in December. And those retreats will include lunch and at a beautiful place. For those of you who are here in Minnesota, the Minnesota Humanities Center is a wonderful place to get away from your everyday life and spend some time together. So that's a short overview of the course. I think I also just want to say my commitment as a facilitator, whether it's in person or online, is to run every course like a retreat, to give folks some real breathing space to step back and say, who am I and who do I want to be? And try to teach in lots of different ways so that it works for a wide variety of folks. I also want to mention if people are interested in who shows up for these classes, it's been a wide variety. I don't know everybody's age, but I do know that we had a 39-year-old, and I know I've also had a 79-year-old in the class, so there's some range. Folks tend to fall into some different buckets. There's folks who are looking for career transition, just wanting to change up their career in pretty significant ways. There's folks who are maybe been primary parents and thinking about or preparing for empty nesting. Definitely a big group of folks wanting to think about retirement ahead of time so that they can head in retirement. And then, say, folks in retirement who are like, this is not quite working for me, and I need to shake things up and figure that out. Sadly, we've had a couple of folks who are widows, just needing to step back from that really hard experience. Lots of people come with from a different place or sort of a need for taking the class, but all wanting to focus on having more purpose in life. So with that, I want to turn it over first to Craig, who was in our winter online course, to just talk a little bit about his experience.
Sure. Hi, everybody. You'll be very glad that you signed up and listened to this webinar because this class was something that was an incredible experience that I thoroughly enjoyed. Why I took the class, I was a chief revenue officer in my job. I'd been in the same industry for over 35 years. To say a little burned out would be an understatement. I'm a super planner and I'm also thinking about what's next. And so I signed up for the class thinking I'm going to find out what my big new purpose is in the next phase of life, my one thing that I'm going to move from this place to this place. And so I was really interested in that deceleration. Between the time when I signed up for the class and when the class started, I had some life events happen with some older folks in our lives that we are taking care of. And it actually forced my hand from a career perspective to approach a fractional role. And so it was interesting to start the class, be starting this fractional role at the same time, and how much that actually added to the experience and made it even better. So I wanted to figure out how do I want to contribute to life? How do I want to contribute to my personal life? How do I want to contribute to the greater good of the world? And again, going in, I'm a very focused person and I went in very hardcore. What's the one thing I'm going to go do? What I found when I was taking the class that I really liked is that I very quickly, with probably even by the second or third session, realize there's not just one, there's multiple. And so that was a true aha moment for me that I could figure out I'm going to do something that makes money, that's a job. I'm going to do something that's for fun. I'm going to do something that's for the community. And so I hadn't really thought about doing multiple things with the rest of my time on Earth. And so Megan in the class really helped with that. The other thing I liked about the class, I have to say, is truly Megan. I think you're an incredible facilitator. And we had a group of people who came together. I think there were 14 of us. And within the first get together, we're already connecting to each other. People were showing vulnerability. And I think what was really interesting, it gives me chills now thinking about it, but you suddenly had this realization that there are other people out there who are muddling through thinking, what's next? Like Megan said, I'm going to live for a lot longer and I'm not going to do this same thing for all that time. What am I going to do that I like and enjoy and gives back and all those things? So it gave me space and time that was dedicated to thinking about what I'm going to do next. And then it gave me the tools in the class to the prompts and things that you need, and then also the community to be able to bounce those ideas off of. There's a lot of time in the class that's allowed for people to speak up and share ideas. Saying that it's people from all walks of life is an understatement because someone could bring up, I want to go work in the political arena for this, and someone else in the class would, oh, I know this person. So a lot of connections happening in that sense. And if I think about the biggest takeaways, I have lived my life quietly from a perspective of why not. And I hadn't really ever put the exclamation point and the question mark on that statement and question. And this class really clarified and solidified for me that what I'm taking away is that there could be 15 different little purpose things I want to do. Why not? If I don't like it, I don't do it again, right? But if I like it, who knows, it might be something that I want to do more of. Clarifying my why not was something that's very important. You'll take away things from the class that are sort of reminders. Like I have taped to my computer right here a list of what I call experiences that help cultivate purpose. And it's the things that I want to remind myself to do every day. And they're as simple as walking the dog or doing something new once a week that I've never done before. So overall, I think that the class surprised me in the sense that it wasn't this direct straight line to a big next purpose that I had thought it was going to be. And it beautifully was something much wider and broader than that.
Thanks, Craig.
You got it.
Celeste, calling in from the East Coast.
Hello, can people see me now?
Yep.
Okay, great. Hello, my name's Celeste, and yes, I am in Alexandria, Virginia, but had a strong connection to Minnesota because I went to school at the U and lived there for about 10 years. This course I took because I was going to change into an empty nester, and I've been a stay-at-home mom and haven't worked for about 10 years. So for me, I knew there would be changes, and I guess I wanted to figure out who I was and what I was interested in and what I might want to do and get a head start on that. I can tell you that the course went way beyond anything I could ever expect. There was a good portion of the course that helped you talk about your interests and your values and step back from your day-to-day life and really remember who you are and what you're into. And then it built on that to help you know, okay, so what do I do with all this? And Craig already mentioned that it doesn't have to be a big P with a capital P purpose in your life. It can be like 3 or 4 smaller P's purposes in your life. And that was a really enlightening concept to think about. And Megan also helped us think about how to take care of ourselves and served up every week a way to meditate. I don't want to sound really woo woo. Take a few minutes to just be you and think about you and stop and center, and gave us lots of little helpful ways to do that. I still have some stuff on my whiteboard in the kitchen that I pause and think about almost every day, and it's very helpful. I am not a skeptical person, but I have to tell you, doing an online course from Virginia with people from Minnesota and other places, I thought there's no way there's going to be a connection here. But people did open up, and people were resources to each other, and they were genuine. And how on earth, Megan, you make that happen? I'm not sure, but you do.
You all did it. You all did it.
Thank you. And gosh, what else can I tell you? I guess lastly, genuinely, I think if you're going through any type of transition, there are so many different ones. There are pieces here in this course that are so valuable. I've plotted out a plan for what I could get started now and things I can really dive into when I'm not getting up every morning to make breakfast for my son or this or that. So it's valuable. I really strongly recommend y'all consider this if you have some transitions coming up in your life, or if you've gone through one and it's a little bit difficult. Thank you.
Thanks, Celeste. Okay, Craig mentioned vulnerability and Celeste mentioned meditation, so we may have scared everybody away. So Matt, maybe you can speak too. It's okay. It's a safe place for you to be who you are. I hope that's good.
I think Megan knew I came into the class a little nervous that it was going to be a little bit too much meditation and that kind of thing. And it was a little bit of that and a lot of other things. My name is Matt Parker. I took the course in person at the U last fall. I think it was a group of about 20 of us, and I really enjoyed the class. The reason I took the class was that I had just gone through one major transition in my life. I was about to go through another. The first was that I had retired from the FBI after 25 years, and that being a special agent with the FBI was a big piece of my identity and a big piece of my purpose. And so I knew I was going to be losing that. And then at the same time, my oldest daughter is going off to college this fall. And so I was about to be an empty nester. So if you take away my job, which gave me identity and purpose, and then my parenting, which gave me identity and purpose, I knew that both of those things were going to fall away, and I needed something to replace that. And I was hoping this class would help with those transitions, and it did. Megan asked us to list a couple things that we liked about the course. The first is that Megan provided multiple strategies for coming up with this life plan or purpose plan. She would come in one day with a couple of strategies, and sometimes I would think that one doesn't fit me at all, but then the next one would fit me. So she would bring in just different options that fit different kind of people and different kind of personalities. And you took the models that worked for you and you giggled at the models that didn't work for you. So I did like that you had different options. I also like the fact that when I first looked at it, I'm like 2.5 hours a week. That's a long course, but I actually came to enjoy the fact that I was forced to block off a significant period of time each week to think about this stuff. because we all get busy, and who's going to sit around spending 2 hours a week thinking about what they want to do with their life and how they want to transition if they're not forced to by showing up to a class? So everybody puts away their phones, puts away their computers, and you just get to focus on this issue so you can really make progress on it during that time. The third thing that I liked about the class was Megan. She was fantastic, so good at her job. And then she asked us to list a few things that we took away from the class. I had written down a few things as I was going through class, and one of the things that was brought up was to kind of map out your life and figure out what parts of your life truly brought real joy to you. And if you can focus on those things in your retirement or in the next stage of your life or in your next career and build around what makes you happy, that can really make a difference. A bunch of people said that retirement can't be just recreation, because if you think you're going to spend all your time on the golf course or the beach, you're probably going to be bored after a little bit, because you need to find something purposeful in retirement. Because this was another thing that kind of stuck with me, and I don't remember who brought it up, but they said you don't want to spend your retirement and when you meet new people in retirement, you don't want to be telling them who you used to be when you were working. You want to tell them who you are now and what you're doing now. So you really need to find something that's going to define you after you retire or after your children move out. And something I'm doing differently since I left, I am trying to do new things and see what works for me. I am still working, so it's been a little bit more difficult to set aside the time since I'm not doing 2 hours a week. But I have now taken up pickleball. I have now taught a class with the Osher Lifelong Learning Academy. And I may start volunteering with a violence prevention group in St. Paul. So I am trying to do little things, try out little things, so that when I retire, I will have some ideas of places I might go and things I might do.
Awesome. Thank you, Matt. I do know a couple of folks who were in that cold case class that you taught, and they loved it.
Good.
Great. It's always fun when I remember Matt being like, oh, maybe I could teach for Ollie. And then here he is. All right, Sarah, last but not least.
Hi, everyone. I'm Sarah Diebel, and I took this class. I'm still a few years away from retiring, and I have two businesses that I'm running, but I was really focused on what my volunteer role was going to continue to be. I've been working with family members and in hospice for about 30 years as a volunteer. And it was starting to take up a lot of my time, my energy, and I didn't have a good balance. And I actually thought about getting out of my hospice volunteering and find a whole different reason d'etre. It was hard to find a balance. I'm currently walking with a friend through her final weeks after cancer, and it is extremely rewarding, but to have that, I'm still living my life. How do I do that? And I could not have expected to have such a fabulous outcome from this course of what my next steps will be. As I walk with my friend, I've realized that collaboration means a lot to me. And I had been looking at being a death doula. As I found out from this class and doing interviews with people in the industry or in the volunteering area, I found that I want to be a collaborative hospice death doula, and didn't know that there were different types of death doulas. And so finding that collaboration and knowing that I've been doing a lot of this alone, and that energy that I get from helping a friend or a family member, when they're gone, then there's a very big hole. So one of the things that I have worked out through the class is that yes, we're going back to mindfulness. I do 20 minutes of mindfulness a day. I work out about 3 or 4 hours a week just to make sure that my body is strong. And I also, as I age, I also realize that art is super important to me. So I am not an artist, I am an art appreciator. And so I'm pushing myself to create, and not showing that to anybody. I will say this life has changed, or this class has changed my life. I have a renewed, and I know it sounds like, okay, really, but no, really. I have a renewed energy towards anything that I'm doing. I have a rower down in my basement, and later this summer, when my daily responsibilities have lightened a bit, I plan to get out in the Mississippi River and start rowing, which never occurred to me before this. So I think that I also have more energy for everything that I do because I know my values. They're very clearly stated. And that was actually the first class. I went back on our notes today just to make sure that I had my thoughts in order. One of the other things I would recommend is the individual coaching session with you, Megan. That at the end of the course, I think we had one class left. She and I talked for quite a while, and I ended up with 4 or 5 other things that now are on my to-do list that I'm super excited about. And I just, again, need that time and the energy. And I think that's one of the things that I realized too is when I've sorted my priorities and my values, I realized there were things that I was doing and giving energy to that didn't necessarily fulfill me in any way, shape, or form. And it has been so much, it's been easy to say, okay, I can give that a certain amount of time, but these are the things that drive me and give me joy. The other thing I want to say is that Craig and I, and actually Celeste, were all in the same class together, and it was a Zoom class, but there is a connection that is just truly lovely. And our first reunion, so far only one yet, but it's only been couple months, someone actually drove up from Texas to join the class, and she didn't have any more family here. It was just really about meeting us and being together. And one of our other classmates hosted it. It was wonderful. And I will say too, I can't say enough, and I know I've said this too before, Megan, you are a wonderful source of knowledge and experience, and feel really blessed to have been part of this experience. It's truly changed my life.
Thank you, Sarah.
Thanks.
So if folks have questions, we can now take any questions and answer those either for me and Brianna about the Midlife Academy or the class, or for any of the alums, if anyone has any questions. There was one question about sort of what organizations have informed the curriculum. And I will say I've been sharing with friends that I've been thinking of, I've just had so much fun with this class. And part of it for me is honestly, it's been my sort of one of my legacy projects. I have used curriculum that I first learned in my early 20s, 30 years ago plus now, and woven together different work that I learned getting certified as a coach, in running leadership development programs, lots of different spaces. Certainly, a lot of folks now are thinking about how it is that we support all of us in midlife to live the lives that we want to be living and need to be living. A lot more research coming out. Folks can tell you I'm a voracious reader and probably gave out suggestions for too many books. We have a resource list that I think now is 8 pages long. So I do share lots of resources and ideas for folks. And just this week, read another book that will inform the class in some way. And I will say, I am a coach, and I believe we can do a lot individually, but I think it's so powerful to be with peers who are at a similar life stage, and learning from one another might be the best research. So creating space for that. All right. Do we have another question?
Yeah, we have a question from Anne Marie wondering about the course addressing ageism and age discrimination that we face as we maybe seek to transition into a new aspect of our life. Segments of our society seem to be so highly youth-oriented and focused that even though we may have the energy and desire to switch gears, others may not be as willing to recognize what we have to offer.
I think that has certainly come up in class where folks are just processing that for themselves. And I will say, I think taking the time to have a class like this or a different experience that helps you step away also helps you to realize, like, where is it that you've bought into that narrative, and where is it that you're like, oh, that's not me. That's not who I'm going to be. And I have other ways to live. It is not a class about trying to figure out how to change all of the ageism, but if you decide that's the social impact you want to have, we will all support you in making that happen. I see we also have a question about how many people are in the class. The online course we cap at 30, and the in-person class is capped at 25. So we do try to keep it to a size where everybody can really get to know one another. And one of my criteria is that I can see everybody on my Zoom screen, and have enough people for really meaningful small groups as well. Try to keep it around those numbers.
Couple of questions about format as well. So a reminder that the upcoming summer course will be on Zoom. The fall course will be a bookend where we have 2 in-person retreats, one on September 11th, one on December 4th, and Zoom sessions in between.
And if neither of those models works for you and you're interested in a different one, send it our way. We'll have had 4 different formats in 1 year, just trying different things to see what works for different folks. And I suspect we'll continue to do that, not just for the Cultivating Purpose class, but for classes for the Midlife Academy in general. We're really hoping in this next year to offer a lot more different programs and classes through the Midlife Academy, and that might include one-time workshops, mini workshops, or retreats, or even a longer program. So if you have ideas or models that you've seen other places that you'd like the university to offer, I can speak for all of us at the Midlife Academy. We'd love to hear that. And we have a lot of ideas too. Part of it's just having the resources to make it happen.
There's also a question about the time of the class, but I think this could be looped into another question just about time commitment outside of class for exercises. And Megan, maybe you want to speak to this, but maybe participants too could give us a sense for what that was like as far as how much time you were spending outside of class. But to the question of how long the actual class is, says it's 2.5 hour Zoom session.
Fall class, it'll be a 2-hour Zoom session and then the 2 retreats. So a little bit different formats. I would say in between each class, no matter what the format, I recommend having 1 hour to 2 hours to step away and have some time for reflection and do different exercises. I always give some core activities, which I would say, and folks can tell me if I'm wrong, can be done in less than 1 hour. But then I always offer other optional activities, readings, etc., that I think might benefit folks. A menu, I think of the class as your toolbox, right? And maybe there's something you don't have time to access during the course itself, but you can go back to. But some folks have dived into all of that and told me that they really took another 3 hours a week where they went out on a date by themselves. And one person talked about spending 3 hours at a cafe and really diving in and having time to make meaning of all that was coming up for her. So I think it varies for folks. Does anyone have a different answer? You can tell me I'm totally wrong and off.
I was starting a new job and I did not do that. I did not have enough time to be able to do that. So I don't think anyone should be afraid of the time commitment being significantly more than the 2.5 hours. I certainly put thought time towards it, but it wasn't like I didn't have time to go and do 3 hours of homework. And I still got as much out of the class, I think, as I would have if I had more time to do. So I think you can set the pace for how much time you want to spend reflecting on things outside of class.
And we do pull together all the resources for folks to access later too, right? I recommend to folks to schedule some time on their calendar at least once a year to come back and say, okay, what's here now that speaks to me and what do I need? So you have access to all of that later on. And yep, and your reflection guide, thanks for showing it, Craig. And I will say, I think, yeah, there's never been any shaming of folks who haven't done their homework. And I try to build the class so it'll work for folks if they haven't had time to do it. I'm seeing a question about a course for couples dealing with empty nest and coming into retirement. Not in my class, but I know in our last next chapter class, we had a couple take the class and I heard it worked really well for them. It's a chance to be learning and thinking about the same content. Similarly, though, I will say that one of the books that just recently came out on this topic, my husband and I are working through it and talking about it because I got inspired by all of my participants in the last courses be like, I need to be thinking about retirement in a few years and what that might look like. And I want to be thoughtful about that. And it's been really powerful to have that time and just to carve out some space to have some conversation with one another. So I can't tell you it's the right thing, your partner, but if you're considering it and you're both interested in that, it might work really nicely. Bree, next question.
Yeah, I think this is a great question that maybe others might have some insights on. A request to talk more about how you help unearth what's most important to you, as we're referencing like nonchalantly, how you reconnect with your deepest values. This person says that this sounds like the scariest part to me. What if I don't know?
I'll pop in. We went into small groups and we started with a list that was already printed. So it's not like we had to come out of it with thin air, which so intimidating. And it was through the collaborative experience that we were able to, oh yeah, that's important to me. But you know what, as we're talking about it, this is actually more important to me. So I've had that feeling too. And I am now guided by those 3 values that I found that first night, actually. And it's not done alone. Part of it is. And then the other part is a collaborativeness. And then it's not just a blank piece of paper and you have to write down your values. And that was really a great gift to get started, was to have the notebook.
I think I'd also say that, like Matt said, I try to have 4 or 5 different activities so different things can work for folks. Matt alluded to a life journey map that I have folks create and thinking and reflecting on what worked in past in life and what were the contributing factors. And sometimes that helps people unearth what matters. I think sometimes just having the space to be like, all right, this week I'm going to think about that. What do I actually care about and what inspires me or what makes my toes wiggle? However it is that you can get to that answer. And it is partly why I offer the individual coaching, because sometimes one-on-one time helps too. And I have a lot more sort of resources and capacity to ask questions in that way. And we're always trying to figure out what matters to us, right? I think there are a few people where it's like, and it's this, and that's been the truth for their whole lives. That is not me. And I think most of us, it's a daily practice of being like, what matters right now? And different things matter in different seasons, right? We haven't talked much about elder care. That's something I'm dealing with right now in really significant ways. And it means that very different things matter in the day than would have mattered a few years ago. So I think part of it is that sort of tuning into yourself and being like, being present to what's coming up now and how to respond to that.
Megan, we have someone else writing to say that they are an empty nester, left their professional life 5 years ago, and one thing they would like to know is, or one thing they'd like to work on is setting boundaries so other people's goals do not interrupt their own purposeful journey. Would this class help with that? And I see
Sarah.
some nodding.
But I will say I've had a few folks say, just by the fact of the people I'm thinking of happen to be all parents, just taking the class and being like, I'm going to be gone for the evening every week, whether it's online or in person, and not present to everything going on was a way of setting boundaries, right? Say, this is the time I need and making that happen. And that it was good practice, sort of building that muscle for themselves and creating the space. And we do talk in the class about what are the boundaries that you need to set to follow through on your goals? What are the habits that you need to build? It's so easy. And I think particularly in our culture these days to just come up with a long list of, if I just do these, my life will be great. This is not that class. I work really hard to not have it be that class. We have too much of both sort of self-help culture and shaming culture, but creating a space where you can come up with what's reasonable for you and then build in the accountability and support to make that happen. Most of us don't set the boundaries or do what we need unless we've created sort of a larger community or support system to help us make that happen too. So we talk about all that. Other questions, Bree?
It looks like someone might have a question about Ollie. There's a reference to tours, ollieumn.edu. We have an annual membership for $325 for unlimited courses. Tours often come with a small course fee, but check out our course guide. Our summer guide is out now, full of really exciting tours around the Twin Cities. We have a group going to tour an electric grid in Egan, hikes, art museum tours, a whole variety of opportunities. So you can check out ollie.umn.edu.
I'll also just add that I did notice that a number of folks in the chat are from different areas, not in Minnesota. And as Bree mentioned, the Ollie program at the University of Minnesota does offer some online courses, but there are Osher lifelong learning institutes all over the country. So if this is your first time hearing about them, you might want to check them out. I know I shouldn't be advertising programs that are not at our university, but I want folks to get what they need. And there may be some Ollie courses as well in your areas too. I'm seeing a question about links being sent after this session. You should be able to click on each of the links, and we are recording it. Bree, can we also share out links to everybody who signed up? Is that possible? I don't know how that part works.
I suspect that the email sharing the recording will also link folks to the course pages. Yeah.
And for anyone who's paying attention, that question came from Barbara Voorhees, same spelling as my name, and no, we're not related as far as we know. So. There is a question about the next in-person class. So the fall is the next sort of in-person class that we have, where it'll be 2 in-person retreats and then 3 online. And I think we haven't thought through what else will be offered for the next year. I suspect there'll be another in-person course as well. Anything else? Any other questions? Some questions just about course cost, etc. Those vary depending on the different classes for the Midlife Academy, but they're listed on the web pages for each of the courses. Anything else? Anyone else want to add anything?
Deadline for signing up for the online summer class. A great question.
I'm not remembering what we decided, but I would say sign up soon for two reasons. One is if you sign up really late, we can't get you your workbook until after the class starts, and that gets a little bit tricky for folks. And it just helps us out and maybe makes my colleagues at the U less upset with me for wanting to send a package out to everybody. So sign up that way. The other is that we have had the class fill up, and then, like I said, we do cap it. For the online summer course, I would register for sure by the end of May, but in the next 10 days would be perfect.
And so, Jeannie, the question about the humanities session for the fall session, this is the bookends class where we will have a retreat at the Humanities Center. This is in St. Paul at this beautiful space. We'll eat, we'll learn from Megan, we'll,
And each other.
And each other and be together in person. And then moving to a series of Zoom sessions. These are 2-hour sessions. Is that correct, Megan? Throughout the fall, and then meeting again back at the Humanities Center for a second retreat on December 4th, coming back together in person. This way allows for both that kind of in-person connection and spreading out this work over a longer period of time.
I'll just add, I actually had never been to the Minnesota Humanities Center, and my colleagues in the Midlife Academy suggested it for the retreat space, and I went to look, and it's a beautiful space. Easy parking. It's in East St. Paul. It's off of many of the different freeways. So if you're coming in from the Twin Cities, easy to get to. And I will say, I've heard from a couple of folks, they're thinking about taking the fall course, but traveling in, and it's about 20 minutes from the airport. So doable, and there are rooms that you can rent to sleep over. This is a during the day retreat. We're not planning an overnight retreat, but it is possible to stay there as well. So it's a nice space for those who haven't been there. Any other questions that we should answer for the whole group? I think if you have any other questions, you can email midlife@umn.edu. Okay, thank you so much. Let's leave the Zoom open for just a moment so that we can answer to a few of the other questions that are in the Q&A. And I'm grateful actually to Matt and Sarah, Celeste, and our other three speakers had to go to other events, but I'm grateful for the two of you for staying and for them for joining us. And I would just say to everyone, if you took the time to sit through an hour-long info session, figure out some way, whether it's this course or not, to create the space you need to create the life you want. It can be so powerful to just step back and take some time to figure that out.
Q&A for the question about the discounts, 62 and over. 62 and over is eligible to apply through the Senior Citizen Education Program, and a link there.
Take care, everyone. Thanks for being